I'd like to call the 3:30 briefing session of City Council to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Council President Beggs,
Here.
Councilmember Burke. Is her
Speak up.
volume on?
Go a little bit louder into yours.
Councilmember Burke,
Here.
Councilmember Cathcart,
Present.
Councilmember Mum,
Here.
Councilmember Stratton,
Karen is here. She's having a little connectivity issues.
okay. Councilmember Wilkerson.
Here.
Let the record reflect that Councilmember Kinnear is absent.
All right, so I'll turn over the briefing of the advance agenda for October 12th to Mr. Ormsby.
Thank you, Council President, members of the Council, and colleagues. On the consent agenda, we have a number of contracts. The first proposed contract for consideration next week is the Alcohol Monitoring Systems contract, a continuation of that. And Michael Diamond, our probation supervisor in municipal court, is here to present this item.
Good afternoon, everyone. On the agenda for the contract renewal is the contract with Alcohol Monitoring Systems, in which the city instituted a contract in 2018. As part of the original contract, it was for 1 year with 2-year additional renewal options. The city took a 1-year option last year, and we are at our last of our 3 years of that contract now being requested to be renewed until August 31st of 2021, at which point we'll have to institute a new contract if we continue with AMS.
Any questions? Okay, next is a contract amendment with the law firm of Thomas W. McLean for legal services involving a personnel matter at the police department, and this is a $50,000 extension of an existing contract. Okay, with seeing no questions, the third item is a proposed lease agreement with Frontier Behavioral Health here in Spokane for the use of a portion of the third floor on the intermodal facility. And Dave Steele from Asset Management and Facilities is here to brief this item.
Good afternoon, Council President, Council members. Yeah, we briefed this at, I believe, Finance Committee a couple weeks ago. This is the lease with Frontier Behavioral Health for third floor, about half the third floor of the intermodal. They have agreed to complete tenant improvements in lieu of the first 19 months of rent, and then the subsequent lease goes for 5 years basically after that. So the term is 5 years paid after that. They are ready to work. They're good to go as quickly as we can get this approved. They've got their preliminary bids and stuff and are ready to begin their work. So if there's any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. The next item is a proposal for a grant agreement with Washington State Department of Ecology for hazmat response equipment, and Deputy Chief Oberg is here from the fire department to brief on this item. And Julie, this may be, in my recollection, your first presentation to the council, so welcome.
Thank you. Yes, sir, it is. Good afternoon, council members. Deputy Chief Oberg. So what I was briefing on is a Department of Ecology grant that actually the department started the work in late 2018. The heavy lifting for this grant was in 2019. Our original ask was for $325,000, which initially we were awarded that entire amount. Through a variety of reasons, that grant was delayed significantly. We've just recently been advised that it started back up, and we've been rewarded now $85,000, not the entire $325,000. So part of the original grant was we prioritized what our hazmat needs were, and the number one need was a multi-purpose apparatus that would allow us to streamline both our decon and our spill items that right now are housed in a variety of stations and a variety of trailers. So this particular purchase would allow us to consolidate that which would speed our process to spills within the community. The cost for that apparatus was just over $142,000, with $85,000 of that grant being a reimbursement grant. That would make our city outlay of just shy of $57,000. Is there any questions that I can?
Okay. Thank you, Chief. The next two items are reports from the mayor. The first is for claims and payments that include those including Parks and Library and also those excluding Parks and Library, and those blanks will be filled in prior to next week's meeting. And then the next subpart of the mayor's report are payroll claims, and that amount will also be completed before next week's meeting. And then finally, we have a placeholder for city council meeting minutes that will be completed before next week's final agenda. Then we move into legislative session. I noticed there are boards and commissions appointments recommended for next week, and I don't know, Council President, if there's anything more to add on those.
I was just going to add that we're trying to arrange for the 5 appointments to the Chase Youth Commission to appear by video and just say hello to us so that we can see them and hear a little bit about where they're going to school and why they're excited to be on the commission. So it'll be kind of like a interview, but really just a little showcase them and also give them a chance to participate just briefly. So hoping we'll get that for all 5, and if not all 5, as many as can.
Okay. Thank you. Then we move to the legislative agenda, and the first is a special budget ordinance that relates to the item that Chief Oberg briefed on earlier. Does council have any additional questions regarding the SBO? Okay. Then we move to emergency ordinances, and one of these relates to establishing a local residential tenancy code, and the other deals with specific cause for most residential evictions. And both of these, I know, are items that were carried forward from earlier, but Council President Beggs, you may have more to say on these.
Yeah, just an update. We're continuing to work through this with our landlord-tenant group. We have not met for several weeks. We're working to get a unified document that has all the problems that they identified, potential programmatic solutions, and then the various code provisions, the language. We had hoped that we'd be into phase 3 by now, so could meet in person with a facilitator who we've selected, but we have not accomplished that work yet, which is disappointing, and I feel like we need to make it a higher priority because housing is such a crisis right now. So I'm hopeful that we'll move forward and get the consensus necessary to get the votes necessary to pass these, but we have not reached them yet. Councilmember Stratton.
Thank you, Council President. I would like to make a motion to defer Ordinance 35860 and Ordinance 35861, to defer both of those ordinances indefinitely.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to defer indefinitely. Is there any council discussion? Councilmember Burke.
Thank you. I won't be supporting this. I, along with Council President Beggs, have worked really hard with advocates in the community to work to get these passed, and I know we are in a bit of a interesting time with COVID. I still think we need to focus on these, and I know that we can bring them up again, but I'm afraid this gives a view that this is not a priority to us as a council, and this is one of my biggest priorities. If COVID has taught us anything, it's really shown us how essential protections around renters are. That's why the governor continues to extend his moratorium on evictions. That's why we passed emergency ordinance with evictions, moratorium on evictions in it. And I think that this is why this council needs to stand up for what is right and do just a flat policy around keeping tenants in their homes. Because if we don't do anything, we are going to see a very, 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 very bad reality. And I'm very fearful of that.
Councilmember Stratton. Councilmember Stratton. Councilmember Stratton.
Was that
Ray, we can't hear you.
Now you can hear me now, hopefully. Can you? No? Still can't.
Now we can.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Stratton. Now we can't hear you. Okay. Nope.
Oh, shoot.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Now we can.
Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke, I want to tell you that I appreciate exactly what you have done and the passion that you have for this. And I share that passion. And I am sorry to feel like we do need to defer it. I will tell you that I think you're right. I think there's been a lot of work done and we need to step up and make a decision. And I appreciate that. But I do think that we could get that group back together so some of us know that that work has been done, voices have been heard, and we can move forward. I don't want this moment to pass without thanking you for your dedication and the hard work that you've done. I know it, and I think everybody else knows it. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, thanks, Council President. Yeah, I would concur with what Councilmember Stratton said. I mean, it's pretty evident the passion that Councilmember Burke has for this topic and these issues, and regardless of maybe my views on these. But I do think that deferring it makes sense, especially if we're waiting for phase 3 to happen, to have this in-person meeting, just because we don't know how long that is, and to continuously, I think, defer this a few weeks or a couple of months, I'm not sure is fair to everybody and makes the most sense. So whether or not these come back in what form, I think it'll just be a better process in order to accommodate these conversations in person and take the time that we need to talk about these issues.
Any other discussion? I'll just add before we vote, I totally concur with Councilmember Burke that it's a crisis and we need to figure out how to address it, even if we weren't in the COVID. I am heartened somewhat by the fact that the governor's moratorium has made most of it kind of moot, so we aren't as far behind as we otherwise would be. I'm hopeful that he will encourage it, and every indication I have heard from his office is that he will. But we still need to get to work on getting it done. And really, my sense, and those of you who haven't been in the collaboration group, is that we've had some very good collaboration, and I believe that we could come out of this with quite a bit of common ground between landlords and tenants and their leaders, get that passed, and then save any tougher issues or more divisive issues for a different ordinance, but at least improve things going forward. But it's just going to take us a little more time to do it. And I'm mindful this is the, let's see, probably the 4th time that it's come up for a deferral. And each time it comes up, I get a lot of anxious landlords and tenants calling to say, what is the language going to be? What are we voting on? So I support the indefinite deferral so that people aren't anxious about what we're doing when we don't have the language yet. But as soon as we do get the language, I look forward to fully publicizing it and bringing it forward, hopefully for a majority vote and signature by the mayor. All those in favor of deferring these 2 ordinances indefinitely indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, any abstentions? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. I count 5 to 1 to defer indefinitely.
Okay. And then finally, on resolutions and final reading ordinances, there's the ordinance relating to the Yellowstone Pipeline franchise, and Tim Zamlin of our office is in my office. If any council members have questions or desire any additional information before next week.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions. Just historically, again, for anyone who's watching and council members, we did defer it so that we could get some more information about what the legal consequences are if the two sides can't agree on a franchise agreement, and particularly in this case, the amount of money for indemnity and the annual franchise fee. And so far, we haven't really gotten anything definitively other than our policy director has analyzed some ordinances from other communities, and I believe just emailed folks a potential ordinance that we could pass that would govern these types of things. So those are there. I'm imagining next Monday at briefing, we'll figure out whether we're voting on this one or deferring it in favor of considering an ordinance that would apply to all liquid petroleum pipelines. Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, thanks, Council President. I guess I'm just wondering, I've been fairly supportive of deferring this so we could continue to get more answers and more discussion. Do you feel like we are at a point where there's no more answers necessarily to get and we should go ahead and vote? Or do you think we maybe want to defer this again and continue seeking answers?
I'm in favor of deferring it. We still have not gotten really the definitive kind of answers I would expect, where we basically someone points us to a state or federal law and says this is what happens, or a state or federal court case that says this is what happens. So we haven't seen that. We have requests out to Senator Murray's office, the governor's office, the Pipeline Safety Trust, which is a nonprofit that monitors pipeline safety, and we haven't really gotten that. So I think it'd be helpful to get a little more time to see if that's out there. But even regardless of that, a little more time to look at considering an ordinance that would apply to this franchise and future franchises, so that all of them are treated the same as opposed to one-offs. So I would be supportive of deferring it, probably 30 days or 4 meetings, something like that. But that's me.
I would make a motion to defer to November 2nd. I don't think there's any urgency. My understanding is the current agreement is what's in place, so I'm happy to defer till November 2nd.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I'd heard almost a tie between Councilmember Stratton and Wilkerson, but I'm going to go with Stratton because I saw that first. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of deferring till November 2nd, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? All right. That passes 6-0. All right. That brings us to the end of this agenda. Is there a motion to approve the advance agenda for October 12th as modified?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Wilkerson on the move, Councilmember Stratton on the second. Any discussion? All those.
Council President?
Yes. Councilmember Kraft.
Yeah, well, if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like we're in a similar situation next week as we were this week, with just one SBO for our evening agenda. And I wonder if we might not move that to 3:30.
So are you going to state that as a motion?
I will. Well, we're in the middle of a motion right now. Is that appropriate?
It would be an amendment to the motion.
Okay. Well, I would move to amend the current motion then to move the SBO to the 3:30 briefing session.
Second.
I know you don't want to. No. I know, but they can come then. They can come at 3:30. Yeah. Okay. All right. I was just chatting with Ms. Allers about the students who said they could come at 6, so we have to check and see if they can come at 3:30. But if not, they can. Well, they can come the next week. We can do that if they want. But okay, we'll talk that offline. Okay. Any discussion about the amendment other than between myself? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion to approve the agenda to move the one item special budget ordinance to 3:30, indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. Abstentions. All right, that passed 6-0. All right, now it is the motion itself to approve as amended and modified. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right. I know. Can we do them on a different day? All right. Well, let's see if they can do it at 3:30 too. We'll see. Apologies but it's important to know. There's also the Girl Scouts are coming to lead the pledge because it's the week of the girl. So we're going to check and see if everyone can come at 3:30. And if we're having a particular issue, we might revisit this next Monday at briefing. So, all right, that brings us to today's meeting agenda. And we had already moved things to from the legislative agenda to today. But before we get to the consent agenda, there is a request to put 2 new things on the consent agenda. And I'm not sure who's going to brief those, but probably the first one, item number 14, is Mr. Ormsby, just for the viewers, who he's already briefed it for council at Public Safety. You're on mute. We can't hear you, Mike.
Trying to save you all the stuff happening in the background, and I forgot I had done that.
Okay.
So as Council President said, we did brief this to the Council Committee this afternoon. It is an interlocal cooperation agreement with Spokane County regarding cost sharing between the city and the county to pay the difference in the total cost of this facility and the grants that the county has successfully received on behalf of the project. Very briefly, this is a facility that will do 2 very positive things for the region, the community, we think. The first is it will allow law enforcement officers to take individuals, primarily those suffering from either substance abuse issues or mental health issues, to this facility instead of booking them into jail first. And this will not only allow the officers to bring people in quickly to the facility, but it also prevents people from having to be booked into jail, which the city is charged for approximately $135 a night. And incarceration for people suffering from these problems is actually counterproductive. So it is good for the individuals, and it also saves the city and the county money in the long term, and it allows law enforcement officers to get back out on the street more quickly than if they had to sit and wait for someone to be booked into jail. So the city and the county have agreed to split the cost of this so that we can begin construction on the facility. The groundbreaking was last Friday, and the sooner we can get going on the facility, the sooner it will be operational, and we can begin to realize not only cost savings, but people can realize benefits to not being incarcerated.
All right.
Again, would be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Yes, any questions on that? And if not, go ahead and brief the next item being proposed to add, which is the interlocal agreement for emergency communications.
Yes, as the council, and I guess council members Cathcart and Wilkerson were not on the council, but last August, I believe, in conjunction with the stand-up of the Spokane Regional Emergency Communication Center, the city and Schrecker had entered into a mutual aid interlocal agreement. It became apparent late this fall, late this past summer, that Schreck was providing far more backup services than they had in the past, and they costed that out to be approximately $57,000 a month. So back in August, the council entered into a first amendment to the interlocal agreement that just provided for a bill to the city for that effect on a monthly basis, and also provided for an expiration of that amendment next Monday, October 12th. The reason that we're presenting this second amendment is that the Schreck has agreed to extend the agreement out further until February 1st of 2021. And so it's recommended that the council approve this. We can communicate the acceptance to Schreck by 5 o'clock today, and then the agreement would be extended for another 3.5 months, during which time the city can continue to look at its options, which include hiring additional dispatchers, which I think has been dealt with separately. So that's the recommendation for the council this afternoon.
And just to be clear, this doesn't include the agreement around the rental. It's just about the personnel backup issues.
Right, that's it. There's a separate agreement that was presented to the committee today that I think certain council members want to have additional discussion on, and we can do that separate from this.
Okay, great. And I'm also informed that there's going to be a special budget ordinance probably coming in front of us next week to hire additional emergency fire dispatchers so that we can staff ourselves up and be independent by February 1st. Any questions for City Attorney Ormsby? Okay, so for those two provisions, items 14 and 15 on your written agenda, we would need a motion first to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to suspend the rules. Any discussion? All those in favor of suspending the rules indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay? Abstentions? All right, the rules are suspended. Is there a motion to add items 14 and 15 to today's consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to add OPR 0742 and 0582, items 14 and 15, to today's consent agenda. Is there any discussion on that? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of adding them indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Abstentions? All right. They are added to the agenda. And
Council President?
yes,
With the suspended, I wondered if I could add another resolution.
yes, that now would be a good time to do it. Yes.
Okay, so just to give a little brief, we haven't sent this around, but I just got word that we never voted on alternatives for Spokane Regional Transit Council. And so this is just a motion to amend resolution number 2020-005 to add council members Mom, Stratton, and Cathcart and council president as alternatives to the Spokane Regional Transit Council, and delegating the schedule of which alternatives will attend as needed to Council President Beggs.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Councilmember Cathcart.
Just so I'm clear, we're just essentially adding who are the alternates to attend. Okay.
Yep. In the same way that we've done for STA. So if anyone can't attend, they would let me know, and I would figure out who would be the alternate. So, yeah. Okay. So all those in favor I guess first let me defer to our policy director, Mr. McClatchy.
Can you hear me, Council President?
Can we just do that as the motion that she brought, or do we have to put it on the agenda and then vote on it?
I would add it to the agenda and then take a vote.
All right.
Rules are suspended, so you can add.
All right. So I'm going to take that motion in second as requesting that it be added to the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay. All those opposed, nay. Okay. It's added as item 16.
We can.
Okay. Well, I think resolutions are effective immediately. It's not an ordinance, so it's, yeah, we're good. All right, we were just discussing whether a resolution is effective immediately because there is an upcoming meeting this week, and we're of the opinion that it is, as opposed to an ordinance that has to wait 30 days. So, okay.
Yep.
All right. Madam Clerk, you could read the consent agenda.
Reports, contracts, and claims. Item number 1, value blanket renewal with Atlas Copco, Arlington, Washington for compressor rentals as needed and during scheduled, unscheduled outages at the waste energy facility from January 1, 2021 through December 31, 2021, not to exceed $135,000, including tax. Item number 2, purchase from Evergreen Tractor, Spokane, of feed belt pulleys and rollers for the waste energy facility, not to exceed $110,000, excluding tax. Item number 3, contract with Shamrock Paving Incorporated, Spokane for road construction services at the waste energy facility from October 1, 2020 through June 1, 2021, $106,066, including tax. An administrative reserve of $10,606.60, which is 10% of the contract price, will be set aside. Item number 4, contract extension number 404 with Hydrotech Generator Repair Plus Incorporated, Spokane Valley for the off-site rebuilding of hydraulic and pneumatic cylinders throughout the waste energy facility from January 1, 2021 through December 31, 2021, not to exceed $100,000, including tax. Item number 5, contract renewal numbers 1 of 4 for the waste energy facility from January 1, 2021 through December 31, 2021 with A. Big Sky Industrial Spokane for vacuum support services not to exceed $110,000, including tax. B. Bay Valve Service LLC, Longview, Washington for on-site valve repair services not to exceed $300,000, including tax. Item number 6, acceptance of fiscal year 2019 Continuum of Care Program Grant Award from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and approval to enter into subrecipient agreements with the awarded grantees. Item number 7, grant acceptance from the Washington Traffic Safety Commission for federal funding provided by the U.S. Department of Transportation's National Highway Safety Administration grant project for DUI enforcement from October 1, 2020 through September 30, 2021. $155,024. Number 8, contract renewal number 2 of 2 for bacteriological and chemical analysis of ground and drinking water on an as-needed basis for the solid waste and water departments from October 1, 2020 to September 30, 2021 with A. Anatech Labs Incorporated, Spokane, not to exceed $58,575, including tax. B. Edge Analytical Incorporated, Burlington, Washington, not to exceed $58,575, including tax. 9, contract renewal number 1 of 2 with ALS Canada Ltd., Burlington, Ontario, California, for specialized testing of wastewater and stormwater, which fulfills the Department of Ecology issued discharge permit, $55,930 plus tax. Item number 10, contract with Transmap Corporation, Columbus, Ohio, for condition assessment of the city's arterial street system, not to exceed $65,000, including tax. Item number 11, 3-year contract with Lexipol for law enforcement policy manual upgrade and subscription, $138,571. Item number 12, report of the mayor pending claims and payments of previously approved obligations, including those of Parks and Library through September 25, 2020. Total $9,894,475.64 with Parks and Library claims approved of the respective boards. Warrants excluding Parks and Library total $9,379,779.96. Item number 13, City Council meeting minutes for September 21, 2020. Item number 14, interlocal cooperation agreement with Spokane County regarding the renovation costs for Spokane County Mental Health Crisis Stabilization Facility for law enforcement and first responders, $1,100,000. Item number 15, Second Amendment to interlocal agreement with Spokane Regional Emergency Communication regarding temporary 911 dispatch backup support services, extending the termination date to February 1, 2021. And number 16, to add as alternatives to Resolution 2020-0005, MUM, Stratton, Cathcart, and Council President as alternatives to Spokane Regional Council, and to provide the schedule as to when alternatives will attend to Council President Beggs. If I got anything wrong on that, please let me know.
Just Spokane Regional Transportation Council.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as read indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Okay, all right. Consent agenda is passed, and we will convey to the SRTC staff as soon as possible that we now have alternates. Okay, so today, the balance of the meeting is we have 3 things to accomplish. We have a special budget ordinance, we have a proclamation, and we have some reports from the Office of Police Ombudsman and the Office of Police Ombudsman Commission. And so I thought we would just go ahead and do the special budget ordinance first. There's no public testimony on it, and then we'll go to the proclamation and then the reports.
Ordinance C 35949, amending ordinance number C 35857, passed by the City Council December 16, 2019, and entitled, an ordinance adopting the annual budget of the City of Spokane for 2020, making appropriations to the various funds of the City of Spokane government for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2020, and providing it shall take effect immediately upon passage, and declaring an emergency and appropriating funds in various funds from various accounts, $3,243,903 to various accounts, same amount. This action provides funding for city operational costs incurred due to the COVID-19 public health emergency during the period of March 1, 2020 through November 30, 2020, and budgets for $614,742 in FEMA and $2,629,161 in City CARES Act funding.
All right, so this is essentially allows the city to spend money from these reimbursements for city operations and expenses as opposed to the community funding, which we're still working on allocating that last tranche of money on that. You'll hear from us in the next few weeks on that. Any discussion? All right, hearing and seeing none, I'll have a roll call. Councilmember Mumm.
Aye.
Councilmember Stratton.
Aye.
Council President's an aye. Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously. And now, Councilmember Cathcart, I believe you are going to read a proclamation.
Yeah. Thank you, Council President. City of Spokane, Office of the Spokane City Council Proclamation. Whereas ombuds is a Scandinavian term that means defender of the people's rights, and whereas today, ombuds generally refers to a person who may make an inquiry of an administrative action and tries to help the inquirer have the problem addressed fairly by the organization. And whereas the Spokane City Charter established the Office of Police Ombudsman in 2013 to provide the Spokane community access to services of an ombuds, whereas disagreements, conflicts, complaints, confusion, and questions will inevitably arise in any government, and whereas the fair and effective resolution of such issues is in the best interest of both the community and the City of Spokane as it fulfills its mission of local governance, and whereas the City of Spokane acknowledges the benefit of providing an independent, impartial, and confidential resource whose role is to monitor complaints against the Spokane Police Department and independently investigate and publish reports with findings and recommendations. Whereas the American Bar Association has established October 8, 2020 as Ombuds Day in the United States. Now, therefore, the Spokane City Council, on behalf of the citizens of Spokane, does hereby proclaim October 8, 2020 as Ombuds Day.
All right. Excellent. And it just so happens we have our ombuds here, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Logue, for your annual report.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'm trying to figure out how to share a screen here.
All right. Yep, we see it. We see it.
Okay, so City Council President, City Council members, I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you to brief the 2019 annual report from the OPO, as it helps us maintain compliance with Section 04.32.110 of the Spokane Municipal Code. I truly appreciate the proclamation, but outside of that, I really appreciate the support that I have felt from the City Council over the previous years. I especially appreciate those of you who have given your time to me and the rest of the OPO while we strategize for the future of the OPO. So 2019 in review, this chart provides a snapshot of some of the work that we did in 2019, and it compares it side by side with the work completed in 2017 and 2018. What you don't see here is one of our significant focuses in 2019, which was researching and writing a closing report on case C19-040, which was published later in 2020. So the biggest increase of workload that's shown here that we experienced was in the number of OPO complaints, which we submitted, which was 77, as well as the number of referrals, which was 158. It represents a total of 235 cases we worked on. When you compare that to 2017 and 2018, it represents more than double, or an increase of 126% of the amount of complaints and referrals experienced during the previous years. If we compared it to 2015, when we had 33 complaints, it represents an increase of almost 800% in the workload of the OPO. Because of this, the OPOC took the lead on community outreach events, so you'll see that number up there is a little bit less. They requested the OPO to cut back on attending events. Interviews with complainants maintained at a significantly higher rate than in 2017, while IA interviews decreased to the level seen in 2017. Meetings or significant contacts with SPD continued to be at a high level. As you can see, we had 379 during 2019. In total, I certified 121 investigations as timely, thorough, and objective, and I declined to certify one case due to a timeliness issue, and that case was C18-104. So this slide just shows you a side-by-side of the complaints received by City Council district. The ratio of complaints by district has been largely stable over the last couple of years. As you can see, most of our complaints were received from District 2, but that's largely due to the downtown area. The second most complaints came from District 1, and the data marked as non-applicable refers to various, such as the community members were residing outside of the city boundaries that received the police response, or the police supervisor phoning the complainant and getting a subsequent complaint on their response. So for community allegations, in this slide, you see that the majority of complaints are from the community, which is represented in orange. Internal complaints, or the ones that are community complaints that were received by SPD, are represented in blue. In total, both the OPO and SPD received 100 complaints from the community in 2019. This represents the most complaints the OPO has received since I've been the ombudsman. The most common complaints from the community remained inadequate response and demeanor. So SPD not showing up for a call for service is the most common type of inadequate response complaint. And that's either not being dispatched or showing up when the complainant was still on scene, that sort of thing. The most common internal complaint was a policy standard or a violation, which covers a policy or standard that you don't see listed. So, for example, not giving their name or badge number when requested, not attending or reporting to work, abuse of sick time, et cetera, those sorts of things. But we also do a lot of complaint referrals. And a complaint referral is either something that is not a complaint on SPD, but it is an outside agency, or it is an inquiry or a situation that provides a customer service opportunity. In 2019, we made 158 total referrals, which is more than triple that of the previous year. But that being said, 65 of those referrals came from 2 community members, so they took a substantial amount of time to work on their particular issues. So outside of those 2 community members' referrals, we worked on 93 separate complaints to a more appropriate agency or a unit within SPD. So 68% of our referrals were internal, which is up 20% from 2018. And those are normally made to just a different unit in SPD, such as traffic, the neighborhood resource officers. The concerns largely encompass customer service types of issues, and they're resolved with a simple follow-through with the community member. 32% of our referrals were to 24 external agencies or other departments within the city. Okay. So here's a line graph, which will give you a general idea of the complaint trends. Of note, we started doing complaint referrals in 2016, and those complaint referrals are not a part of these numbers. So if you counted I just lost the number, the 158 total referrals, that number in 2019 would be up to 258. Because previous to 2016, those were treated as inquiries to the department. So 2019 saw a slight uptick of community complaints on SPD and a 33% decrease of internal complaints. While these numbers do appear to be trending up, we have to point out that they do represent a substantial decrease from 2013 and 2014. The decrease of complaints could easily be attributed to the time period in which there was no ombudsman. And they would be relatively stable if we included the referrals as complaints as they did in 2013 or 2014. So for outcomes, this slide shows a snapshot of complaint classifications. In 2019, 30% more community complaints only received an initial review by Internal Affairs, and then they were closed as an inquiry, suspended, or closed. This occurs for various reasons, including when the allegation of a complaint does not rise to the level of a policy violation, or there isn't enough information to investigate, or the complaint is disproven upon initial review. So that one I wanted to dial down just a little bit, because a complaint is disproven upon initial review is something that we implemented in 2018, I believe, as a closed complaint. So when we receive a complaint and we watch the body camera footage, if we can conclusively decide that the complaint upon action did not occur, then we'll close the complaint without sending it up the chain of command. So for example, if we get a complainant that says the officer called me a bunch of nasty names, or they hit me with batons or slammed my head on the ground, if we can see conclusively in body camera footage that those actions did not occur, we'll simply close that complaint. Previously, those complaints would have gone up the chain of command and received an unfounded, exonerated, or not sustained finding. So that is one reason for that increase in that number. So in reviewing the cases to prepare this report, I also want to say that in the inquiry suspended or closed category, on 5 separate occasions, even though they closed those out, IA did recommend some additional training or mentoring for the officers. So while they didn't result in a policy violation SPD did take further action, and I commend them for doing that in those cases. Okay, this slide has a bunch of things going on. So this slide, I'm required to do a discipline slide for specific issues as part of my annual report. So this represents that. So the most serious discipline issued for a community complaint was a 1-day suspension of an officer, while the most serious discipline for an internal complaint outside of termination or retirement of the employee was a 40-hour suspension. The most common sanction issued was training, although training is generally not considered to be discipline of any sort. So NA on this slide refers to cases that were administratively suspended or were inquiries, and none refers to cases in which the officer was exonerated or the complaint was found to be unfounded by the chain of command. So for statistics of interest, in this slide, you can see that critical incidents increased from 1 to 5 from 2018. So 4 of those critical incidents were officer-involved shootings, and 1 incident resulted in the subject's death after there was contact with officers and force was used. I need to point out, though, that the subject in that case later died from self-inflicted injuries, which the officers were trying to prevent. But the SMC defines a resulting death as a critical incident if an officer was there, even as a witness. So we have included that in those numbers. So in 2019, the OPO made 4 recommendations to the Spokane Police Department. 3 of the recommendations involved tracking the use of force and the use of force policy. 1 recommendation involved the advisement that officers should provide juveniles when in temporary custody. So 3 of these were implemented or completed, and action was not considered for 1. So for the recommendation of juvenile Miranda advisements, that was implemented. SPD created policy 324, which is the temporary custody of juveniles, and they also created a new constitutional rights card and disseminated it to officers. Recommendation number 2 was use of force reporting against persons of mistaken identity. And this was completed, and the Training Academy issued a training bulletin. Recommendation number 3 was reportable uses of force, i.e. body weight, takedowns not resulting in injury, wrist locks, which other departments generally count as part of their use of force numbers. No action was considered by SPD in regards to increasing or taking track of these non-reportable uses of force, such as body weight, takedowns, et cetera. Recommendation number 4 was us asking SPD to re-implement the duty to report the use of force to internal affairs when a supervisor sees misconduct during the course of their review. That section was taken out during the use of force policy revision, and it has since been included in a subsequent version. So that recommendation is implemented. We also put these recommendations on our website, and you can see the link right there. So for themes of 2019, really it comes down to a major project which we worked on last year, and that was a closing report for C-19-040. And it was on an incident of alleged excessive force that occurred in February 2019. We felt that it was important that we thoroughly examine the incident, which we did, and we published a report later in 2020, which is available on our website. As you can see, that's a snapshot of our website. But we'll talk about more about that one in our 2020 annual report. But in 2019, we also continued to experience some obstacles in our work, and those issues remain largely the same as in previous years. But we went through 2019 without really any solid forward movement towards real solutions. And probably a significant cause of the delay of that was because the OPOC sent a complaint to the city in 2018, which unfortunately languished in HR without a decision for the majority of the year. And because that complaint was ongoing, it also impacted communication between the chief and I, as there was some concern over that pending complaint. Thankfully, we're past that, and we saw during the initial version of the guild contract, which they pushed out, it appears that they're paying attention to some of those concerns, and hopefully we'll see some forward progress on those as the guild contract comes to be finalized and passed. So as for the budget concern, I'd ask the council to again consider providing the funding to increase our part-time employee to full-time. I don't know when it gets to city council, but we did again request the budget increase via a white letter sent to the city for its consideration in the 2021 budget. We do recognize that many, if not most, or maybe even all of the city departments will be feeling a budget squeeze this coming year, especially due to COVID and how that some of the negative impacts we're going to feel from that in our city. But I simply want to continue to impress upon you the need. The amount of work in the OPO has risen substantially in the previous 5 years, and it continues to grow. Our administrative specialist position is critical, as she conducts the majority of initial contacts with complainants. She assesses their concerns, and then she works to put those complaints into the system, which we need to do inside of 3 days. Some of her phone conversations, though, which we began to record this last year, are of such quality that IA investigators routinely say that they don't have any further questions of the complainant. So if there is any funding available, and I think the total is around $35,000, I ask you to carefully consider our request, as it will truly have a positive impact on our office should it receive positive outcome. So looking forward, a lot has changed since the last time I briefed you on our yearly accomplishments. In my presentation to you last year, I said it gets frustrating to work in a system where the leaders say yes, we agree with oversight in public, but then it seems that they do everything possible to make sure that that oversight becomes difficult or non-existent. Since then, we've seen our country and our local community rise up and protest against police brutality and demand real change. Locally, our community showed up in unprecedented numbers to make it very clear that they would, or what they would and would not accept in a police contract. We've met with the administration, and I appreciate you including me in some of the discussions on police reform that the City Council has taken moving forward. And I truly look forward to working with you as we continue that effort. As we move forward, Chief Meidel has also asked the OPO to review SPD's response to the protests that happened in Spokane following George Floyd's death. That's pretty significant if you consider where we were a year ago, and I'm really appreciative of Chief Meidel trusting the OPO to provide a thorough work product in that regard. Our work on closing reports is important, as they are one of the few tools that civilian oversight has that we can truly make an impact with. Perhaps it was the environment that we republished, or we published our closing report in, but I'm pleased with the attention that we were able to shed on a case that had important officer safety and procedural issues, which would have otherwise gone undocumented. While it's not feasible to write a lengthy and detailed report such as this on every case, I feel that it was appropriate, as well as allowed by the SMC and the current bargaining contract. It's not on the slide, but one item that I think is important to bring to your attention as a City Council is that it's recently come to light is with critical incidents and being called out to the scene. Part of our SMC has the ombudsman being called out to scenes of an officer-involved shooting. However, with the implementation of, I think it was I-940 throughout Washington, there are severe restrictions on SPD's participation and any involvement in any part of the investigation of an officer-involved shooting. So as such, internal affairs investigators are no longer called out to the scene as it's being handled by an outside agency. But we do not currently have protocols in place for an outside agency to call the ombudsman out to the scene for a walkthrough, and internal affairs is no longer permitted to do it. So there's work to do in that regard, and I think some of that's going to be from a legislative level. So I look forward to working with you on that. I've already mentioned our request for our administrative specialist, so I won't double tap you on that. But I hope it's obvious that I could not be more pleased with the work of Libby May Omana and Christina Cody. You know, the work that they do is really a heavy lift, and they have clearly shown a significant commitment to the mission of our office, especially when it becomes difficult. So I just want to say thank you to them and acknowledge their work in front of you. So subject to your questions, I'll be followed by the Office of Police Ombudsman Commission Chair, Jenny Rose.
All right. Thank you, Bart, so much. And
I have a quick question for Bart.
yes.
Hi, Bart. You had on there workspace needs. Do you know how much square footage you have, how much you need? Is that what you need? And you've got 3 people in the office. Can you explain?
I'm sorry, where was that?
You said workspace needs on your bullet point.
Is that towards?
Last page.
So the OPO workspace that we're talking about there, ma'am, that includes adding a little bit higher of a wall so that we can cut down on the noise from that first floor and allow us to work with some of that material that's confidential in a more safely guarded manner. I was previously working with Wes Crago on that, who gave us the overhead to have someone come and scope it out and come up with a proposal on that. But everything's changed in the last week, so I'm not sure where we are on that. But it's something that I'm going to look for going forward to see if we can make that just a little bit more of a confidential area.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Bart?
Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, quick question. One of your slides, you referenced use of force reporting with regard to mistaken identity. Does that occur? Do we have numbers on that? I would love to just know more on that statistic.
Yes, sir. So we did. We had 2 cases actually that occurred in 2019, in which the officers were in good faith following a lead, and they believed that they had the person that they were looking for, and it involved a wrist lock takedown. One involved what appeared to be a level 1 LNR that was beginning to be put on, but was quickly switched to just manual force of the person to the ground. The problem was it turned out that the individuals which they took to the ground in I guess if it was me, I would consider it a rough manner, and if it was occurring to me, but they weren't the people that were involved. So in that case, even though the force did not rise to a level of what we refer to as reportable use of force, I think because it includes members of the public which were not actually guilty of anything, they were just in the wrong place, wrong time, and looked like the wrong person, that we should definitely provide a full review of that, of any type of force used against someone that was not involved.
And in those 2 cases, were the officers cleared? Was it an obvious case where they were resisting arrest, or what was the situation?
There was, again, one involves a juvenile, so I don't want to get too deep into that, but it just it involves how the officers approached the person and how the person was taken to the ground. So normally we would not consider a takedown to the ground without resulting injury or reportable use of force. But because it was a person that turned out not to be who we were looking for, I felt it would be wise to look at those in a little bit more depth. So the officers didn't do anything wrong. They acted in good faith. But part of our job is to look for places which might add liability to the city. So if we could look at those cases which are odd and are outliers a little bit closer, I think it's important.
Yeah, no, thank you for those details. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Logue? Not seeing or hearing. I just want to comment, Bart, that I thought your published report was excellent, and your verbal report as well was very helpful. And also, I would say the same of the commission's report, because I'm sure your office had something to do with that as well. But let's hear more from our OPOC chair, Jenny Rose.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Is my video on? I can't see it.
Yes.
Not that I need it. Oh, okay. I'm using my phone because my internet at my home is horrible. So I don't even know, I can't see myself, so I don't even know where I'm at. But anyway, more important, Mr. Logue is going to be doing the PowerPoint for this. I don't see it up.
It's up.
Bart,
I think.
it's up?
There is a PowerPoint up. Oh, here it comes.
Okay, there we go. Okay, well, good afternoon. Thank you, President Beggs, and thank you, City Council members. It's really great to be here virtually with you. You're going to see a couple of, well, more than a couple. You're going to see some things that kind of overlap, of course, with Mr. Logue's report. Going to the next page, you can see some of our OPOC actions that we took in 2019. First of all, we renewed Mr. Logue's contract. We renewed it last August for 3 years. And we also voted in Ms. Omana as our Deputy Police Ombudsman position, gave her a new title. Unfortunately, though, it is sitting somewhere in HR to reclassify her, and we don't know what is happening. There has been no action on this. So we're already October 2020, and we're still waiting to make sure that she receives the pay that is warranted for this position and also the title for this position. We do want to thank Asset Management. We had a security threat in 2019 in the office there, and they came right in, looked at the situation, and made some changes to the actual physical office area. So a permanent wall was put in, or not a permanent wall, but actually it was made to be better. We just needed a lot better. And 2018 update, I think Bart touched on our complaint against Chief Midel. That is still unresolved, so we're talking 2 years now. And then you can read the bottom one, the OPOC review of 1832 and C-18055. This regards interviewing an officer in which Chief Midel overruled, which he can't do because of our ordinance, and nothing has become of that. Also, we have a couple of public records requests. Mr. Logue had one in, I had one in, and we have still not received the final, anything final on that. So we are closely looking at that. Okay, next slide. Wow, who is that good-looking lady there? That was actually Unity in the community last year. You can just see some of the engagement that the 5 commissioners have done in 2019, and we're happy to do this. Of course, with COVID, it's very, very limited now. We do sometimes wonder as commissioners, though, what is our impact to the community? Because sometimes we can see it and sometimes we cannot. But we are happy to do anything that we can to bring more publicity, more PR to our OPO and our OPOC. The next slide is on training. You can see some of the training that our commissioners have done. One of our most important is the NACO, which is the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. 2019, it was held in Detroit, Michigan. There was also a regional NACO conference in Washington, D.C. We had Commissioner Smith and Ms. Cody attend that. There are numerous webinars, and then some of us did a training, Why Race Matters. That was very, very, very good. So we are always looking for training. I'll just put a side note in here. This year, the NACO was virtually online for the month of August, September, and there were, I think, about 32 sessions that people could pick from to attend. You could do all 32, or you could pick and choose which ones were the most interesting to you. I did a few, and wow, they were literally outstanding. Next slide, kind of a little bit of repeat from what Mr. Logue had shared. First of all, you can see right there on the slide is the juvenile Miranda advisement. This is what the officers receive. So it's and this is our recommendation, and it happened. So it's very exciting to see an actual physical, even though it's a piece of paper, but something physical that actually our officers are currently using to help with our juveniles. And, excuse me, I won't read the other ones because it's basically what BART reported out on, and then, of course, as the OPOC, we voted on. I will say that this slide is missing that link, but to go back and actually look at the link BART had on his slide if you need more information. And then the next slide on Section 5, the evaluation of the Office of the Police Ombudsman. And so the highlights include the work the OPO has continued to increase. And as Mr. Logue explained, the referrals have gone up by 400%. I would like to, the complaints and referrals, excuse me, I would like to think that perhaps, I've been doing this for 5 years, I would like to think that as we have gone along that people have become more familiar with the OPO and the OPOC and where to go if they do have a complaint. But I also know at the same time, if you look at that second bullet, Ms. Cody conducted 187 interviews, and again, that was a 500% increase compared to 2018. And I'm just going to throw in, after the peaceful protest on May 31st this year, she continued to work extra hours that we do not really have in our budget, but she worked those hours because the work needed to be done with all the complaints that came in. So she was paid, she needed to be paid, but just another plug for looking at the budget to make Ms. Cody full-time. And then the OPO continues to improve their training and skills. Mr. Logue, as you can see, is currently on the NACO Strategic Planning Committee, and Ms. Omana completed her Force Science Advanced Specialist course in the spring of 2019, which involved many, many hours. So the next slide talks about our challenges, and I already talked about the first one, fully funding Ms. Cody, our administrative specialist, to a full-time position. So please keep that in your mind. One of the other things is when we have a resolution or an action that we take, sometimes with that resolution or actions or issues, they don't go anywhere. But I think I just mentioned a couple with our public records request, because we don't have a venue in which to raise any objections. Where do we go? We have an attorney, right now it's Mr. David Bingerman, but he has signed a contract with the city of Spokane. So we are looking in, how do we make our attorney 100% dependent, so we, as the commissioners and the OPO office, are 100% independent. And then, of course, you can see the police union in contract negotiations, which is they do not like something, and I'm sure you're all aware of the various issues over the years. They will say no, and then it stops right there, which is a little disheartening. And again, we have no avenue to pursue. And I want to think positive intent that is not in place on purpose. I don't think it is. But somehow we need to figure out how we, the OPO and the OPOC, can be 100% independent in order for us to get our work done. Then the next slide, looking forward, of course, we're looking forward for budget support. We do have a turnover right now in our commissioners. We currently have 3 commissioners. 2 of our commissioners just recently they both termed out, but they also, because of various reasons, could not. Mr. Holman actually moved out of the Spokane City property line. So that is from Ms. Burke and Mr. Cathcart. That's your district. So I know we had somebody that filled out an application, but I don't know what happened after that.
Yeah, Jenny.
Yeah.
Kate, we, Councilmember Cathcart and I have agreed upon Luke join, so we're just waiting on finalizing that process. But I wanted to let you know.
Oh,
so long. We had a large transition and then COVID and everything. So
I know. Well, thank you so much, Katie. Thank you so much. And then the other one is Elizabeth, because she is she is chairman of the Spokane Symphony, or president of Spokane Symphony. So, Mr. Beggs, that would be your appointee.
Hannah.
So we hope soon that we would be able to find somebody for that position.
It's going to be Councilmember Kinnear and Wilkerson now. That they have to do it. So.
Oh, okay.
But I've told them. I'm confident that they're working on someone.
Okay, great. Great to hear. Well, we look forward to that. And then the last bullet, of course, is our what I had just talked about was our legal counsel independence. So, are there any questions? Because that concludes my report.
So Jenny, Councilmember Wilkerson here, and I should have asked this when Mr. Lodge was on. So that space on the main floor really has no privacy for interviewing, confidentiality. Has there ever been any discussions about relocating that office either somewhere else in the building or off-site?
Okay, so I believe Mr. Logue could answer that question for you. I believe there has been some wanting by the OPO. I don't know how far the discussion has gotten. Is Mr. Logue still on?
Says he's still on. Oh, sorry.
Councilmember Wilkerson, the answer is yes. We've had problems prior to the remodeling, and so this is an ongoing issue. I think it's improved. The space has been improved, but we can always have continuous improvement. I would like to know the process. I think that they were in the process of getting those, and I see Mr. Logus back on.
I'm trying to be back on. I can't figure out how to get off of this screen and to find the mute button.
We can hear you.
So we have had some conversations in regards to moving the office off-site or to another area in the building. I think it really comes down to ease of access for the community members that want to see us. And any other floor in the building is, other than, I think, was it the 3rd floor, that has access right to the community without going through a whole bunch of different hoops. I think the space is good for walk-in. And what we have, that little conference room right next to us, it's conference room 1A. So when we need to do a detailed in-person interview, we will go into that, especially if it involves some sensitive material. And that way we do have a space to take someone, but it's the normal work when I'm watching body cameras and stuff like that where, unfortunately, there's some harsh language sometimes that comes out of those body camera videos, and I can hear what's happening in 311's space from where I sit in my corner, so I'm relatively certain they can hear what's going on as well. So the sound just floats across that first floor. So even when Mayor Condon was in place, we were talking about putting a wall that went up to at least the ceiling, sort of like what they did on the other side of the first floor. And I think it would definitely enhance the optics of the office for sure as compared to what it is. But that's all I know. Mr. Crago had asked us to put together a proposal. We do actually have one in hand. So we're going to get to the asset management to see if it was in line with what they do before we brought it anywhere.
Hey, thank you, Brian. I just always worry about confidentiality. Subjects are extremely sensitive for people who come in and have to state their challenges with Spokane Police. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, comments? Jenny, thank you so much. You've been a great leader in that office for many years. And we just to address a little bit the question of where's your venue if things aren't working. I think we will be addressing that. We have to finish up the contract first, which we are working hard on. And those kinds of issues don't require negotiation, as I'm understanding. So when we update the municipal code to incorporate the new contract provisions, I think we can address that, and including the actual independence of your legal counsel. As you know, I used to have that position, and I remember the language where you sign that says, I will never sue the city. But you're like, but what if my client, the OPOC, needs me to sue the city? So there's some things that we've learned. So we should be able to clean those up. Again, I wanted to, thank all of your commission members. Please convey for all the work that they do. And it is making a bigger and bigger difference. And once the new contract's in place, I think you'll really see that. So thanks for your reports and all your work all year round. And I see Councilmember Stratton.
Thanks, Council President. I just want to thank Bart and the commission. I know that I know how hard you all work, and I think if anything, your presentation, your reports are great. But I think if anything, it's telling us as a city council that we need to continue and advocate for the work that you're doing. Make sure that you have the tools that you need to be successful. I know that I know the work that goes on in that office. I truly believe you need that position to be a full-time. I'm concerned about the attorney piece. It feels like a conflict of interest there, but something that hopefully we can help you with. But I do want to thank you because I know you sit down on that first floor and there's lots of activity going on there and we don't always know about it. But I will commit to continue to advocate for your needs because you directly connect with those people that need a place to complain or to talk to somebody. So I will continue to advocate, and thank you so much for all your work. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right, that brings us to the end of our meeting. We will see people next week. I believe we're having a study session this week, 11 o'clock a.m. With that, have a great week, everyone. Stay strong, stay healthy, take care of those people that you know and love. We're adjourned.